All right.
So we are live on Zoom too.
Oh, Gary did make it on. All right. Steve.
You missing anybody?
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. We are live on YouTube and recording. So we will call the meeting to order. On the agenda, I don't believe there are any additions since Friday. Did anyone have anything that they needed to add for tonight? Seeing shaking heads. All right, thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. Again, seeing none. With that, we'll move on to delegations, presentations, or petitions. We do have the RCMP report this evening, and we have Constable Steph Leduc and Acting Detachment Commander Lou Janvin on the line. So I think we'll ask that if you could present the report first, and then we'll go to questions.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Sorry, Your Worship, I don't know if they all have a copy of the mayor's report, or you just want me to kind of highlight some of the things?
So all of council does have a copy. I guess it's just any highlights that you want to identify.
Just some highlights, I guess, with the youth. We did the Paint the Police truck. It was a big event. It was very well received. We did it at the Children's First Center as well as at the youth center. We had about between 50 and 80 kids between both events come out to paint the police truck, including some adults and some local doctors that were really excited to paint the truck. Nothing major to add other than that for occurrences, unless you guys have any information. I will let Acting Detachment Commander here just highlight what's going on with Sergeant Grant Tom.
Yeah, just so you know, and obviously I can't go into great detail, Sergeant Tom has taken some time off. So in the interim, I'll be overseeing the detachment, and depending on Constable Leduc and Corporal Howlett, as well as Corporal Brendan Woodcock, they'll be running the day-to-day operations, and we will be in constant touch, as I have an office in their office as well. So if there's any issues, please feel free to bring them up to myself or to either Steph or Paul or Brendan.
Great, thank you for that update. Council, is there any questions? Seeing shaking heads. All right, well, with that, I will say thank you as always for your hard work in the community, for the community events. I know that there had been quite a few drive-by birthday greetings as well, so kudos to Amber for organizing those. Yeah, I think thank you for your work and for your presentation. If there are no further questions, you're free to go this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I'd like to thank you for the great support that Mayor and Council provide to the detachment. It is much appreciated.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, we can move on to public question period. I don't believe we've received any questions this evening. SAO Hood, can you confirm, please?
I have not received any.
Thank you. So on to the adoption of the minutes of the June 24th, 2020 council meeting. Were there any questions or comments on these minutes? Seeing none. All right. Oh, Kurt just texted me to say that he won't be able to make it this evening. So heads up there. All right, if there are no questions on the minutes, we can move to the action items. I have requested on item number 1 an update for the next meeting that would give a fuller scope to council of where we're at with both of those projects. But if there are any other questions on the current list, I'll take them now. Councillor Barlick.
Sorry, just in line with that update on number 1, perhaps an update on number 12, which would have to come from GNWT. They said they are still planning to do construction this summer, but we're in mid-July and nothing's even started yet. So I would be curious to know whether they are still planning to do any work sometime. And maybe it's starting in August, but nothing started yet. So
SAO Hood and I had a meeting with some GNWT staffers last week. And that was, of course, one of the things that we asked about. My understanding is that they do intend to go ahead with it this summer and that the tender should be out within the month of July. That's about where we stand on our update at this time. But of course, we'll stay on their case about making sure that it gets into the projects this year. We did receive a list of projects that were coming from the GNWT as a whole, and that project is on that list for the 2020 year. So if that can give some assurance that that we should see some work starting there sooner than later.
great, thank you.
Councillor Salatki.
On number 11, I haven't been down to the boat launch in the last couple of weeks. Has signage been posted regarding PFDs? I know we can't loan them out, but I haven't seen anything on social media regarding use, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. I just haven't noticed anything.
Sure. SAO Hood, can you answer
We
that?
are still working on getting the signage worked on and figured out. Because the plan was to have the loaners and encompass that with that, but with this, us not allowed to do the loaner and have a package down there. Now we've got to we're just reevaluating how to get the signage up.
Could we do up some quick posters for online just to do some education for the community and reminders just because it is prime voting season right now?
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you. Anything further on the action items list this evening? Seeing none. All right. That we do not have new business or any bylaws tonight. So department head reports. First, we have the public services report. I know Rick is on the line. Director Campbell's on the line if we had any questions for him. So are there any questions on the report? Councillor Wood and then Councillor Barlick.
Yeah, I noticed you're doing a lot of work on the blue garbage bins, and that's great. I think it's fantastic. However, I have had a few complaints from some residents where the blue bins were installed and they're blocking their view of the street when they try to back out from their driveway. Could we have a look around and see where the issues are? I know there's a couple on Centennial, and see if we can fix the problem for them, because it does present a danger.
Thank you, Clarence. Rick, did you have anything to add there? Or Grant?
Obviously, we can take a look at what they are. Sometimes it also becomes a question of where to put them, but I see Rick's unmuted, so I'll let him answer.
Okay, the plan was to get them out and try and find out where they could be best located. Now we've got them out. We will be looking to see the problem areas and rectify them, and hopefully we'll get them all done as soon as I get back. So.
Okay, thank you for that, Rick. And I will add that everybody does appreciate that they're out there now. So the complaint was just a little bit of placement here and there. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Councillor.
no.
Oh, go ahead, Rick. No, okay. Councillor Barlick.
Great, thank you. I saw in the report that there was some mention of issues of clogging within the water intake due to the high silt loads this year. So I just wonder, now that we've sort of gone through that, has there been any thought to how we can avoid a similar situation like that in the future? Should we get a heavy silt load experience again?
Okay, in regards to that, we had intended to bring a diver in this year to take a look at our intake and clean it all out. As you all know, that little thing called COVID come along, and that didn't happen. So we have figured out ways around using our main intake, but we are planning this year for sure, one way or the other, to get divers in and just make sure that the intake is clean, because we haven't had this problem. We had it briefly last year and it cleared itself up, and that was why we had planned to bring the divers in, but the best laid plans of mice and men get put off, so we're looking at it.
Okay, so the issue is mainly that the intake screen itself, not necessarily down in the pipe, is where I had envisioned at first, with just settling of the silt in the pipe, but it's mainly just the clogging of the screen on the intake.
Yes, as you're probably aware, Fisheries and Oceans requires a fish screen put on the intake. And the fish screen is basically a bunch of narrow little 2 millimeter or 3 millimeter slotted openings. And I think I showed you a video on them, if I remember correctly. And they are partially plugged, and a heavy silt load, as we found out, will plug them off completely. So we're dealing with it.
Okay, yeah, no, I just thought that maybe there was another issue where it was clogging up further down the pipe as well in the intake, with the silt maybe settling out in the pipe, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And I did have one other question too, which was just with respect to the calcium that was ordered. I thought in the Public Works meeting we reported we're going to be switching to the beet juice. Is that put off till next year, perhaps, or?
I'm not sure if you were there when I gave the update, but I didn't have enough money in the budget to do the beet juice. It's about three times as much as what we had, so we went back to calcium.
Yeah, no, I didn't make it to the last Public Works meeting, so thank you.
Councilor Wood, you had another question?
Yes. As you know, we do as and whens for brush cutting and so on and so forth. I was approached by a couple of individuals, companies, as to why you don't do an as and when for vehicle repair and maintenance. I know it's too late this year to address, but is there any possibility of including that in next year's as and whens?
We had it at one time, and what happened was we found that the mechanic shops in town here are so busy that we find ourselves as a real disadvantage to getting our vehicles fixed if we have just one place we can bring them, We generally try and bring them to where we can get them in to get them repaired and back on the road as soon as possible.
Is there no way we could get priority in the as and when?
We always try to get priority, but it hasn't worked in the past for that particular stuff, so.
If I may interrupt, the other option that you have to be careful of is depending on warranty repairs and things like that could be, and who is a licensed an approved warranty repair place. So if you'd have to also be very careful that way.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll pass it along.
Great, thank you. Is there anything further on the public services report? I'm seeing none. All right, on to the planning and development report. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All right, on to the economic development and tourism department report. We do have Director Chalice on the line for questions and also maybe a little presentation, Jackie. I'm not sure how. I will hand the mic over to you, and then if there are any questions, maybe we'll go from there.
Sure. I don't have a particular presentation, but rather I did prepare the document for council. In addition, as people probably saw, a document did go out to the media today. That was a FAQ, or frequently asked questions, that addressed pretty much the questions as they are presented to you in the timeline document, but refer to the questions that we were hearing, both as a direct request from media, but also just in the public foray. So we tried to answer those to the best of our ability. And I can certainly answer questions if there are some. And later then I could maybe provide a little bit of summary comment.
Hi, it's Gary.
Go ahead, Gary.
After reading a lot of the documentation and what's occurred and all the media posts and so forth, I just wanted to say I believe the Director Charles went above and beyond in attempting to involve the community and attempting to make it open to local artists. So I feel it's really unfortunate that after this work is all done, that everybody's coming back on her and with the gateway sign and complaining about it. Because I really feel that entire department and the town actually went above and beyond to try and let everybody know about the project, what it was, what was happening. And it wasn't something you did at the spur of the moment. I've been working on it for 5 years. So I just want to give my support to Director Chalice and the work she's done.
Great, thank you. And I mean, I think we don't all need to repeat the same thing. I think that we all stand by the folks who do work at the town, and our administration puts a lot of work into every project that the town has. I know that we also make an effort not to respond to things that happen necessarily online, but this maybe got a little bit further in the negativity sphere than we would normally like to see anything go. So I think it was important that we got out there and tried to get in touch with some of the media and get our own words out there as well. So I just want to acknowledge that we do support Director Chalice, her staff, and our entire staff at the town, and want to see them continue to do great work for the community. Councillor Salatki, yep, go ahead.
I'm not going to just reiterate all these, but I think there is a point to this that we need to really look at and take under advisement, is that there are a lot of upset people, and we are here as a representation of the town. And so I think that instead of just saying, okay, Jackie did a great job, which Jackie, you know, I think that there are people who are upset, and that perhaps it's time that we did look at what are we missing? And this isn't just the town that has the same problem. Everyone who works in this community hears on a regular basis, I didn't know and I'm upset. Rant and rave is not our means for getting information out there. So how can we start a working group? Can we do something that can come up with a solution that in a small town, we are taking those negative comments and turning them into a chance to grow, a chance to learn, a chance to hear what they have to say, and not just say, well, actually we did fine, so let's just move on. I think all of us have probably had a lot of comments from a lot of different people on both sides. I've had people say they're mad. I've had people say they're mad about the people being mad. But I really think that we need to look forward as to, okay, how do we fix this so this doesn't happen in the future? Because I would, for one, would love to be a part of that conversation, because I not only get it from council, I get it at my own work, I get it in other parts of my life. So if we could come up with a solution, I know the interagency committee has also run into this problem numerous times and has had some ideas of, you know, should we have a digital billboard that has information out kind of near the ARI sign, something that we can look at that may sound silly at first, but obviously we are clearly missing a large portion of the community in the conversations that are being had on Facebook or on posters or the rolling channel. We need to find a way to make everyone realize we actually hear them, even if it's just them screaming about something that they could have asked the questions about. There are a lot of upset people that we could find a solution here.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Salatki. Councillor Lorraine, did you have something?
Yeah, just to sort of work off of that, what Councillor Salatki said, very well said. I totally agree. I think there's been a disconnect. I think communication is definitely important in our community with it being so small. Obviously, everything was done right here. We have that on paper, you know, and it's a matter of people coming out to these consultations, but it's also a matter of making sure we're reaching all the right groups and that everybody is represented. So I'd like to see that, whether it be something digital or it be like a group of people, a committee of some kind, I'm definitely on board for that. But thank you again to everybody who worked on this, because we can see the work put into it. It's very appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Barlock.
Yep, thank you. I think we have a lot of the tools in place from the town side. I think there's a few people who want to be more informed. They should sign up for updates from the town. And they can do that either through the website and get direct emails, or they can do it through the Facebook posts or other ways. Anyone who's not able to get those digital medias are typically the people who are reading the paper boards in the post office and at the drugstore and stuff too, at RDA. So I don't know how much more we can do without people taking a step towards the town as well. Every update that comes out, I get it twice because I'm signed up for the email update and I'm signed up on the Facebook page as liking the town page. So I get every single update twice. And there's tools there for people to access that make it easier for them to get that information, but they have to actually take a step to sign up for those themselves as well. So I know people are upset. It happens with everything because there's always people who either just scrolled past it without realizing what it was or didn't take the time to look at it or thought they'd get to it later and then forgot about it. This happens all the time. And it's just one of those things where it's kind of hard to predict what's going to gain a lot of traction with people in town, but I think the town did everything we could to get the information out there on several different occasions. Unless we're going to have people phoning around individuals in town, which is a big waste of time and money, I think, and very inefficient. There has to be some onus on people who want to be informed to also take steps to get informed as well. The information was there, and it was in forms that could be made available in a variety of formats, in a variety of media. So I'm not sure how much more we can do from the town side. I think everything was done appropriately, including individual emails to groups of representative groups. There's also some onus on those groups to inform their representative memberships as well. So I think we did a good job, and it's unfortunate that people didn't realize what it was at the time they saw it. I'm sure a lot of them did see it and didn't look at it. So, you know, we need to move on at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Salatke.
I agree with a lot of what you have to say, Councillor Barlock, but I also think we need to look at what is being posted and the amount of information that is maybe extraneous. That you're right, people see it, they scroll past it because we're getting too much of too many things. And so I even actually remember when we got in May, the Town and Council gets latest look at upcoming new gateway sign article came out. And even a couple of people on council said, what is this? We haven't talked about this. Whereas you can see on the timeline we had, because of the inundation of so much information, that maybe we need to be looking at that of how concise are the messages that are going out. There's a lot of information out there and not everyone is going to take the time to weed through. So while I agree with you and it frustrates me because the information is there and you go through the protocols, maybe there's too much information being put out there. Maybe we need to look at streamlining how much goes out, because I've made that mistake as well, where I thought I was putting all the info out, but there comes a point where people don't read past the first paragraph. It's a whole thing about online presence that we need to look at. What are we sending out there? How much information are we? So I do think that while I agree with you, we could be tweaking some of our communication methods to make sure that we are capturing everybody in the most concise way, because I understand that some of the town employees were treated very poorly in public because people were yelling at them, and my understanding is there's been some almost harassment over this. And so if we can do anything to make it better, we need to do that. So yes and no to what has been said. I think we do need to have a little bit of time spent trying to make this better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The treatment of the town staff was completely unacceptable and frankly shameful. At the same time, council's received one letter on this issue. So I don't know what you guys, I don't govern based on Facebook comments and social media comments. We got a letter. I think we can talk about that. That's the only thing we've actually received from anybody to date.
Thank you. And I mean, happy to put it out there that all of our emails are our first initial and last name at inuvik.ca. If anybody ever wants to reach out about any topic, not just this one, we are available. The people of Inuvik put us in these seats for us to represent what they think. And we are, I think I can speak for all of us on this screen right now, open to hearing what people have to say and willing to share it when they do. So Oh, look at Des knowing how to do it right there. All right. Director Chalice, did you have final words you wanted to add?
I did. If Mayor and Council is okay, there's just a few points and comments that I wanted to make, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead, please.
So I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna take my part, and I'm gonna take, responsibility in the things that I've done. And it's like the question that I have put out there and I continue to put out, and I think Councillor Salatke and others, right? Like, where do we go from here and how we can do better? And I think that should always be, the cornerstone of what our conversation is moving forward. I can say when the first article went out, I spoke an hour with the original journalist from CBC in Yellowknife, who moved there 2 years ago from the United States and has never been to Inuvik, and put out the article. I also spoke to Ron English for 2 hours and had a good conversation with him and got some insight. I spoke to our local reporter, and I only bring that up because I actually had one-on-one conversation. So I didn't respond to something in Facebook. I didn't just look at something on surface. I tried to really have some dialogue around this. I also have reached out to some of the art organizations, and I will say, now I haven't spoken to everyone, and I don't want to say that I have, but I have attempted, and I do think that soon you will see that we will have an arts working group here in Inuvik with the ACTMC, with the Indigenous Artist Hub, with the Great Northern Art Society, and I hope others. Now that's just one sector, but I do hope that moving forward, that is one thing that we say, how can we do better? I think working as a collaborative, and hopefully in that forum, I think the reference of the interagency, I think, is important potentially. But there's also just another comment I want to say about communicating with the Indigenous government. And one of the things is that I want to make really clear, and you probably saw it if you read the article today, because I noticed and I made specific notice, but when we were asked, who we communicated with, and I was very clear, and you see that in your timeline, and that was in the FAQ document. But I in no way want to insinuate that just because one email wasn't answered or because a phone call wasn't answered, that I am placing blame on the Indigenous governments for not representing. And that's really important for me. I want all of the leadership to hear that, and I want also members to hear that. I wanted to demonstrate that, in fact, I did reach out, and that is true. But you know what? They have self-government, they have community meetings, they're traveling, their schedules are 10 times busier. So I in no way was trying to implicate or say that simply by not attending on one particular date. I also, since all of this has happened, I personally once again reached out to each of the leadership in each of the Indigenous governments, and have had a number of exchanges through email, and I've left some voicemails, and I hope to continue that. That's also just, I'm a staff person here at the town, and I think that when you talk about leadership, government to government, that's a conversation that Mayor and Council needs to have with yourselves about how you communicate with other levels of government. And that's not for me as a staff person to tell you what that should look like, but I'm going to do my part, and I hope to continue to work with those groups. And I also just want to say, that same component is there's lots of people, and I know Councillor Salatke, you alluded to it, is a lot of the artistic community and people around saying that we had sort of shifted blame, that it's their fault because they didn't see the post, and it's their fault they didn't get involved. And again, this can't be about blame. We can't just keep going there and having it be about polarization between it's a black and white issue where they did or I didn't, and trying that. It's only bringing us to a negative place, and really it just needs to be about, okay, I'm going to take ownership. I take some responsibility on my end. Could we have done better? Perhaps. Can we do better in the future? Absolutely. But like Councillor Barlick, we have to meet in the middle. We all have to be able to say, yeah, you're right. I get 30 emails a day. I saw it, but I didn't act on it. I didn't pass it on to my members. Sorry about that. Now I kind of missed the chance. So how do we go from here? So I hope that all of us can maybe take a pause from the negative and a pause from trying to prove a point, whether you're on this side or you're a sign lover or a sign hater, or you collaborated or you didn't collaborate or you answered an email. Really, it's just about, are you part of this community? Yes, then let's, not sit at the back of the room and be upset, but step up to the table, be part of the conversation, integrate, answer, responses, and see what we can do together. And 2 more points, and I'm sorry, I know this is really long, but I feel like this has unfortunately been my life every moment for the last week and a half or however long. I just want to point out also that Fathom Studios has also been receiving harassment, and also from all over Canada. So again, this is not a conversation about our residents here. I just wanted to point out that Fathom was hired by us. Fathom is the studio, or is the organization that did the work for us. And they in fact didn't sit in Nova Scotia and just randomly come up with a design and then present it to us. They actually came up with a design based on feedback that they received here. So I just wanted to make that point as well. And they're actually very concerned, and they too want the best. They don't want to be part of a story for a community that's putting in something that people are really upset about. So I'm not trying to plug or favorite a particular company, but I did want to speak to them because the people that are working on this project have been working very hard, and they too are affected by what's happening. And then just my final, final note here is, it did turn personal, and everything from social media to on the street to in the grocery store to people yelling things as the truck goes by to online petitions to have me let go. And I want to say a few things. One is, to be honest, there's people across Canada and other places that have shared their comments and given feedback. While I'm sure it's valid in their own right, the people that I care about, whose opinions I care about, are the people in this community. Like, I work hard to try and do the best that I can for the residents, for artists, for people living here in the Beaufort Delta and in Inuvik. And I have from the beginning, and I'm not trying to do this like as a plug, because it shouldn't be personal. It shouldn't be about me or Director Campbell or SAO. It's not about that. It's about us as an organization. And there's a lot of people that actually have been working very hard on it. The ironic part is that my name is attached to the sign. But, if you actually look at like the work that's being done and who's doing the surveying and who's helping, like if there's other departments that are doing quite a bit of work to this, and I'm not dragging them in, but rather crediting them for the work that they're being done. And I just, I can deal with the national thing, but I just want to speak to the community that same thing. You can always phone me. You can always email me. You can always send something to my boss, SAO at inuvik.ca, to Grant Hood if there's an issue. You can approach mayor and council, and I'll try and do better, and I'll take my ownership of my part, but I can't take it all. Like, we all have to come to the table. So thank you for giving me that time, and I'm sorry that was kind of long.
Thank you, Jackie. Councillor or Deputy Mayor McDonald.
I thank you, Director Chalice. I appreciate those comments, but sorry, we're having a reverb here. Just one second.
Maybe if Grant can mute just while Paul's talking, then.
Well, okay.
Sorry, my apologies for that. So Director Chalice should not be taking ownership of this at all. It is a council decision. We directed Director Chalice to move forward with this. Although there were some councillors that weren't totally in favor of it, we as a group made a decision. We moved forward and we directed her to move forward. So there should be no negative comments towards her. They should come towards the councillors and the mayor, and we can move from there. But that is not fair for her or her department or her staff or other staff in the Inuvik town office to take any heat for this. It was a council decision. So I'll reiterate some of what Director Chalice has said, but in the end, it falls on our shoulders. So if people in the community are speaking out now that they're not happy with this sign, well, we represent those constituents. So we need to have a serious discussion. Do we continue with this particular iteration of the sign, even though the tenders have gone out and been awarded? Or do we do this? And I think that's the conversation that needs to start happening here. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor Kulikowski, if I may add a couple of words, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ovid.
So the first thing I want to do is that I personally want to say that I'm proud of what Director Chalice and what her staff have done, and all the town staff that, as she validly put out there, of other people that have worked on this as well. This project was probably one of the most, how do I say it, looked at opportunities to do it. And I know we can get better. I appreciate that, but I need to emphasize that what Director Chalice and the others did, the number of times where the public had opportunity to have input. We went to the craft fair where you would think some of the people would be there and stuff like that. And I think they should be, you know, I fully support what Director Chalice has done and the effort that she's put in on this. And I agree 100%. It is not fair, the way she's being treated. And if people do have issues, then contact me, and that's what I'm here for. And we go from there. But I just think from an administration point of view, I fully support what we've done. And yes, as being pointed out a number of times, we can get better. This one, I think it would be hard to find other areas where we could have improved. But we can always look at it. And during the process, the feedback is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ovid. So, at the end of the FAQ document, there is some information about what additional costs would be if we decided to reissue tenders and design concept and all the rest of that. Basically, that section comes down to an additional $20,000 to $80,000 to complete all over again. I mean, I can't make this decision. It's definitely a council conversation, but if there are councillors who want to entertain doing that, this is, Deputy Mayor McDonald is right. This is the time to speak up. So I'll open the floor if anyone does want to make that point, or if you feel that we should stay with the one that we're currently on. Of course, we'll listen to whatever your thoughts are here.
This is Alana here. Can I ask a question, please?
Go ahead, Alana.
Has the tender been awarded?
No. We are in negotiations. Sorry, we are in some negotiations with it because the pricing came in a little higher than anticipated. So we are looking at a few things there.
But that's specifically for the fabrication side only.
I'd suggest getting legal advice, because we may find ourselves in a position for paying for something that then in the end we don't have.
I would just reiterate the tender that's out now is only with respect to the fabrication side. The design element, all that stuff is that's all separate.
That the design contract was awarded and signed. That was with Fathom. Yes, you are correct. The fabrication and installation of the sign is the tender that is out now.
So then we would be paying again for somebody to design something, and we don't know where we're going to end up. When we already have a design, there is many opportunities for community consultation, and people may or may not have chosen to engage in that. My question is, why would we do it again?
Thank you. I hear you. And that's why we're here having this conversation. So clearly we know how Alana feels about that. Why would we do that again? I guess if there is argument for why to do that, we're here to listen now. Councillor McDonald or Deputy Mayor McDonald.
Actually, one of my questions for Director Chalice, the funding that we're receiving for this, is there a deadline for when this funding has to be spent before we even entertain ideas about may or may not adjusting things? I'm curious if we're going to lose funding on this.
So there is, to my knowledge, no external funding for this project. This was allocated as a capital budget item, started in 2015 as a capital budget item, deferred 16, 17, started site work in 18, but there is no external funding. Whereas the other two projects, in regards to the park and the stage and the building, those are receiving funding.
Thank you. Councillor Barlick.
Yeah, no, thank you. Councillor McDonald's question sort of leads into a comment that I would have about all this too. As elected councillors and mayor, we are also responsible the public purse of our taxpayers' money. And I think we have to make fiscally responsible decisions. And personally, I think given where we are now, I think it would be fiscally irresponsible of us to start allocating another, we'll say 60 to 80 grand to redo all this again. Unfortunately, some people were not happy with it, and probably just as many or more are happy with it. But when you get into politics, you make decisions, and there's always going to be people unhappy with their decisions, and you just got to take the heat until the next outrage comes up. So, I mean, we've had these kinds of things flare up before, and we've made decisions, and you have to move on. You know, if people care enough about it, they'll write letters, they'll do what they need to do through official channels. But I think at this point in time, I would not be interested in entertaining us doling out another $50,000+ to do more work on this sign. I think it's too far down the line.
Thank you. Councillor Loreen.
Yeah, just to say that exact thing there. I think we're too far along now. The money's been spent on the design. We're where are we at right now on this exact project? But I think the lesson to be learned, what we can do working forward, is take a look at how this can be more accessible to people who are local. You know, maybe it's breaking down the tender, maybe it's getting some more consultation. And I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I'd definitely like to have that conversation with administration and with the community just on how we can change this process to make it more accessible to local people. While the sign is gone now, the sign is done, in my opinion. It's definitely, this is the chance to change it going forward, I think.
Thank you for all of that. Were there any further comments on this item at this time then? I'm seeing none. Okay, with that, we'll kind of reel it back over. Were there any further questions on the report? Councillor Loreen.
Just want to say to Jackie and the crew, really congratulations on Midnight Madness. I know that everything didn't really pan out. Well, nothing panned out the way it was supposed to for our big event. Because I remember growing up here, Midnight Madness was a big thing. And I know we talked about other events happening during the whole weekend, but really good job, good effort on everybody's take there on social media, trying to keep it interactive. I like that. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Loreen. I would be remiss if I didn't say that 100% plus goes to Hannah Prestige and Louisa Ospina, who are the two staff that work in that department. They are the ones that put each and every one of those events together and worked really hard to do so, both creating online and, you know, interactive. We had a few family activities and some in-person ones at the park, and those two ladies in that department put on, they're the ones that do the market, they're the ones that are doing the movie tonight, they're the ones that do the culture workshops, they're the ones that do the concerts. So they get all the credit, but thank you for that comment, because agreed, in non-COVID times, I can't wait to have an actual like 3 amazing days and nights of activities. And I can't wait until next year when our community can be alive again, doing events, and all fingers crossed that we can do that.
Great, thank you very much. All right, if there are no further questions or comments on the ECDEV and tourism report, we will move on. I'm not seeing any hands up, so we'll move on to the community services report. Now I have asked Director Salmier to give us an update on the report, but also on what rec programming or programming in general we're going to see coming down the line. So Lise, I'll turn it over to you. If you're talking, you're still muted. There
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. We've had, aside from what I put into the report, with respect to the summer programming for kids, we started with the drop zone. Actually, just recently, the youth center is actually coming in 5 days a week for a couple hours each morning to embellish their programming for the summer. And then I've got 3 summer program staff who just, I believe they finished up today with some posters and whatnot. They're going to be doing movie nights for the kids on Fridays, and they've got craft programs slated out for every, I believe it's Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I can't remember which day. But they've got them already slated. And then they've got a games night, which we've ordered some additional games, board games, as well as other types of games that we don't have in the drop zone. And they're going to be doing sort of theme game nights where it might be a mini putt challenge, a board game. Let's learn how to play these games and then have a little bit of a tournament. So that they're looking at those kinds of things to put in the evenings as well. So I know there's a couple other things that pending the arrival of some of the equipment that we've got, they're looking at a few special events in the summer as far as I know that one that we've got coming in is dinosaur eggs. So they're going to do a dinosaur egg hunt and it's like an archaeological dig. So it's an educational thing for the kids as well. So they've got that they're going to start to plan as soon as we know when the eggs are coming. So they've got a few things like that they've got in the works. So we should hopefully see some things like coming forward within the next week or so.
And any structured play plans in the park or anything? I know we don't have Green Shack this year, but any thought to have anything in the parks?
Well, I think what they're looking at having, like, we may, and we're still sort of working through it with Green Shack. We could do some Green Shack. So we're taking a look to see the schedule that they've got ironed out for their other activities, to see where we could place what nights would be a good Green Shack night, and whether we do it, say, in a specific playground, or we take Green Shack and we bring it down to, well, maybe not the Green Shack itself, but the various equipment that bring it out into, say, Duck Lake Park or something like that, to try to get it into a few different areas of town. I know that they're looking at those kinds of things as well, but they're still sort of trying to play it into a schedule.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the update. Were there any questions from council? Shaking heads. Any questions on the report itself? Seeing none. All right. Thank you, Lise. That will move on to the Protective Services report. And we do have Fire Chief Hammond on the line as well. Were there any questions or comments on the report? Right, no questions. Chief Hammond, did you have anything you wanted to add? No? Okay, thank you. So that concludes the department reports. Onto information items, the strategic priorities chart. At our last meeting, we did acknowledge that the operational strategies section has been updated. I will be sending you guys an email later this week looking for any feedback on whether council wants to update anything in our section. So unless there's anything tonight that you wanted to bring up, we can address that in the coming days. Councillor Wood, yep.
You missed the SAO report.
Oh, sorry. I did too. All right, let's go back up to 10.5, the SAO's report. Were there any questions or comments for Grant? Councillor Wood.
I needed this opportunity. Grant, since we had the fire on Kugmalik, I understand that you're working with ENR and WSCC on the cleanup. Has there been any response or plan put forward by them to this point?
So where we're at on that is we've had a couple now meetings with ENR. They've asked us to send out some more samples. As of last Friday, we believe that the one sample came back, and then it's a question of whether some of the lead paint, whether we can actually bury it in our landfill or not. We are waiting for ENR to come back to us on that. We had instructed a company to an abatement company, local company, to start separating out the siding. That's the only contentious part of what we have there, to start separating that out so that the rest of it can be trucked away and put into the solid waste site. And that should be ongoing quite soon. It's just a question of coming back with from ENR. We're hopeful the next day or two they're going to tell us whether we do. We are hoping that we will be able to, because it was a minimal, it's a special test they did as far as being it leaching out into the ground, and that that the levels are within an acceptable range now, that we'll be able to put it all. We've also asked that to do one of our options was actually to put a liner in the hole that's already dug, ready, been waiting since 2 days after the fire to put the stuff in. Put a liner in there, cover it properly and everything else. And ENR came back and said no at that point in time. So it's been a little bit of a frustration on our point as to trying to get this done. Every time we turn around with suggestions, they keep coming back. And unfortunately, some of the things they're coming back with could lead to an expensive solution. So we'll have to see.
Thank you for that, Grant. As a follow-up in the same area, has there been any movement from WSCC on having the other row housings declared unsafe to work in so we can tear the darn things down?
We did get a report from the abatement company saying that the interior of those buildings are unsafe, and they have sent that letter off to WSCC. Unfortunately, it's the exterior, the siding. It's the same issue that we're running into with the fire debris, where we have an estimate of about $80,000 to do that abatement. And so we just have to look and see what our options we have.
Thanks, Grant. Maybe in the next year or so, the government will do something about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Great. With that, we'll move on. Oh, if there's no other questions on the SAO's report. No. All right, we'll move on to council concerns. Are there any concerns to be raised this evening? Councillor Waller? Oh,
thank you.
Just one sec, Alana. We can't quite hear you.
Okay. Tell me when.
Cool. You should be able to go now.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to give a thanks to Rob and his team over at the Midnight Sun. I had sent forward a complaint. Somebody had a concern about one of the pieces of playground equipment over the Choo Choo Park, and they had that thing fixed within 24 hours. So thank you very much to all of them.
Great, thank you, Councillor Merrill. Deputy Mayor Barlock, or sorry, Councillor Barlock.
Old habits. Yeah, just a couple minor things. One, the skate park. I know we've been having some issues with garbage being left around the site there. I know there is a garbage can there, but it's kind of tucked around in a weird spot around the side of one of the ramps. A lot of the garbage seems to be accumulating over by the benches on the other side of the park. So I wonder if Public Works may want to look at that and see whether it might make sense for them to move that one garbage bin over to the area around the two benches. That seems to be, when I have seen some of the garbage, a lot of it seems to be around the bench area. That may encourage people to use it a bit more, because it's just in a bit of an awkward spot the way it is right now, with if people are going to access it. That's one thing to look at as a suggestion. And I guess the other question I would just have is, are we planning to have a discussion about the letter that was received regarding the whole Inuvik sign issue and the tendering process? Or is that something we're going to look at another meeting once it's had a chance to be reviewed a bit more?
My suggestion would be that we bring it either to the Public Works or the Administration Committee. Maybe Public Works, because it does deal with the tendering process itself. Okay. But SAO Hood, I'm not sure if you had anything you wanted to add to that idea.
Not at this time.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to see what the plans were to look at that, because it is something we did receive. So we need to give it a chance to be looked at and discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Loreen?
Yeah, so just looking back here, the reports from recreation looking like the town cleanup. I just have a question about the town cleanup thing. When we have the offer out to groups and they either take or don't take these zones to pick up the litter, what happens to the litter afterwards? Does it just not get picked up, or is it that then town staff or somebody else that goes around and is assigned to pick it up? Is there a process there, or does it just, how does that work? Because I'm seeing we only got 6 out of 13 zones got picked up this year. So it's like, I realize some of them are more daunting than others, but is there anything going on with those zones, or is it just kind of be like Wild West and let the raccoons figure it out?
I'll defer to SAO Hood or to Director Selmer. I don't know who wants to take that one.
I'll take it for now. Right now, they are left. We don't have the manpower to be able to go through. That's why we have the beautification process in the first place. We're always looking, if it's a major item and things like that, then obviously we will pick it up as they do their rounds during the day. But right now, we just don't have the manpower with all the other things we're trying to achieve in the parks and the trails and all the different things to have then a crew out doing that at this time.
No, that makes total sense. Thank you very much for that, Grant.
I just have a follow-up there. So if the zones that haven't been done are still,
If they're available, anybody can come apply anytime, and we're happy to provide them the necessary resources to clean it up and send them a check.
okay, thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Salaki, you had a question as well?
I do, but I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. I had asked this question a few weeks ago, I believe, at council regarding the bingo and Nevada fees to the not-for-profits that have paid that there's not any bingo or Nevada. There's still been no communication with anyone. So just wondering what the timeline is on that to find out if they will be getting their money back.
We did send checks out. They were sent out a month ago. Yes.
So I've had some people mention it, and also I look after 2 organizations that had bingo and Nevada, and we never received any checks in return.
If you had the Nevada or the bingos, then you do not get a refund because
we didn't have them, and I'm not the only one. A couple of other groups have mentioned it as well.
Well, if they want to get a hold of me, then I can do the research and look, because we're just basing on.
I've had no response to the emails I've sent out, and neither have they. So I'll have them look into it, and so will I.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor McDonald.
Hi, this question is for Director Campbell. With regards to the hanging footwear that is currently on our power lines, is there anything we can do about removing that? Because I see that they're gaining friends. So we now have a pair of cowboy boots and a couple of sneakers. Garbage attracts garbage. So I'm wondering if there's something that we can do as a town to get that removed or facilitate it being removed.
Yeah, they're all over town. I can, when I get back, I will call both Northwest Tel and Inuvik TV, who's belong those lines to the lines that the stuff is hanging off, and see it if they could get after taking the stuff off.
Thank you.
I just might add that it's a very good question, but we would contact the owners of the lines and stuff like that, especially if it happens to be a power line, and that because there are certain liability issues if we decide to go try and fix it and break the line.
Thank you, Councillor Wood.
For Rick, our street sweeper, I'm getting a number of calls about it leaving more gravel than it's picking up in some areas. It'll go over what essentially is clean pavement and leave a line of gravel all the way along it. Seems to be leaving more than it's picking up in some areas. Is there still a problem with that street sweeper or what?
Actually, about a week ago, we put a new broom on it, but I just want to reiterate the fact that there isn't a street sweeper made that will pick up the gravel that we put on the road. 100% of it, because it's for sand and stuff like that. It's not for crushed rock like we use. The other thing is our pavement is not as level as it used to be, and the broom will not go and into the low spots, and it is leaving in the low spots, but we are also are trying to go behind with the steer skid once in a while and pick those problems areas up, so.
Is that with the brush on it, Rick?
Yes, we have a piece for our steer skid that has a broom and a capture bucket,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. So if there's nothing further under council concerns, we do not have any in-camera items tonight, so we will just need a motion to adjourn, please. Council or Deputy Mayor McDonald. So we'll come back together Wednesday.